الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة الأبدية على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. Inshallah, we are going to have our continuation of our session on the option to choose the marja', whenever there is a you can't define who is whenever you can't define who is equal. Are they equal, or are they who is more knowledgeable? You cannot define. In that case, what is the responsibility? We mentioned that the responsibility would be, let me share the slides. Okay. So we said that the responsibility in the absence of okay. So just a quick look at the ruling itself. So the ruling itself defines like that. If you are not able to define the a'lam, okay, if you're not even able to define the probable in a'lamiyya, so this is not the case in our time, but maybe in future we might have a scenario where you are not able to define a most probable in a'lamiyya. But nowadays, the majority of the scholarly direction is pointing towards Sayyid Sistani. So even if somebody cannot say he's the a'lam, but worst scenario can be that there is a stronger probability of him being a'lam because the criteria of a'lamiyya and the conditions of a'lamiyya are pointing towards Sayyid Sistani. And that we have discussed in the chapter of Taqleed. So you can refer back to the chapter of Taqleed, which I have discussed in this with details about the a'lamiyya of Sayyid Sistani. So we said that if a person, Sayyid al-Khuwaini said, if somebody was not able to find an a'lam, then he would perform precaution in their fatwas on the basis of obligatory precaution. If such was not possible, then follow the one who has the strongest probability to be the a'lam. If there was not so probability, then he would have an option to choose between them. However, if he knows both are equal, or if he is not able to define the equality, and he knows that they have differences, then he will have to do precaution between their rulings. So in all the cases, this is Sayyid al-Khuwaini and this is Sayyid Sistani. Sayyid Sistani says, this is if the possibility of precaution was available. Okay, if a person was not able to perform precaution. So we are going to start and end with this mas'ala. So focus on these two lines of fatwa of Sayyid Sistani. هذا كله مع إمكان الاحتياط. This is if precaution is probable, then you have to do precaution. But the precaution is not possible. Possible. Then what should you do? He says precaution could not be possible due to one of the two cases. Many times people say, no, we can't do precaution. Why? So that is also taken easy by the public, by the lay public. By lay people, the precaution, they say we can't do precaution. Precaution is difficult. So if it's really difficult, then only a follower has an option to choose. So how can we picture that difficulty? Sayyid Sistani and Sayyid al-Khuwaini, both they have similar ruling, that the difficulty was pictured due to a contradiction between the wajib and the haram. So let's say one marja says you have to do Eid. Like Sayyid al-Khuwaini, moon was sighted somewhere where sharing of the night is Eid. That is wajib Eid, haram fasting. Others says opposite. Sayyid Sistani says no, you can't. You do like you have to check the local sighting. Kind of his ruling is different. So in this case, what will happen? We have a conflict between wajib and haram. You can't do ihtiyat here. You can't do. What is the ihtiyat of wajib and haram? If you don't do both of them, you're going to be a sinner. If you do both of them, you're going to be a sinner. So in both cases, you're going to be a sinner. So what will happen? That you have to do taqleed. But who's a'lam? Then you can choose, because I don't know who's a'lam. That is why I'm doing ihtiyat. Now I can't do ihtiyat. Then you can choose any, mini, miny, anyone. Okay, but but even this choice, marja after marja, is based on criteria of a'lamiyya. So the criteria of a'lamiyya needs to be observed. You can't choose. So look at the words. If he was, like for example, Eid, I have two marja. One is saying your fasting is haram. One is saying your fasting is obligatory. Who should I follow? If I follow this, I'm committing haram. If I'm following that, I'm committing haram. If I follow this, I'm committing wajib and haram together. If I'm committing wajib on this marja and haram based on that marja. If I'm following that, I'm committing haram on that marja and wajib on this marja. So in both cases, I'm going to do some contradicting thing. He said here, you don't have to do ihtiyat, because this is where ihtiyat is difficult. And then another scenario would be difficulty due to the short of time. You are sick, or there's one marja says do qasr, one marja says do tamam, and both are your options. So you have to do ihtiyat. But I can't do ihtiyat. If I will do ihtiyat, my salah will be qada. So in that case, what will happen? You are not going to, you are going to choose any one of them, because both are equal, or you don't have any knowledge about who is more knowledgeable than other marja. So in that case, you are going to choose any other marja. Kindly keep your drawing pen away, because it's messing up with the the slide. I don't know how to even block the drawing pen. Anyhow, sorry. So here are two scenarios. One is either time is short, I can't do ihtiyat. If I do ihtiyat here, my salah will become qada. So no need for ihtiyat here. Sickness, whatever reasons, you are not able to perform ihtiyat. But if you are able to do ihtiyat, then you have to choose. This is Sayyid al-Khuy Sayyid Sistani. Other maraja, the popular opinion says, if you can't define the a'lam, you see, and you have the probability of both being a'lam, I would appreciate if somebody is using the pen to close this pen function. If you don't know, please let me know. I'll let you close it. Because this is a very high, if you are not able to, then you need to leave the classroom, because there's a very high level discussion, and it needs proper focus from me and from you as well, because I'm not Sayyid al-Khuy. I'm trying my best to link up the mathematical equation here. So yes, any disturbance would not be good in this session. So I apologize for that.
If you want, I could silence them if you want to make me co-host, inshallah. Sorry, I'm late.
No, can you like disable? Okay, I've done it. I've disabled their annotation. Okay, perfect. Now they will not be able to use their pen. I know somebody accidentally might be clicking here and here, and it doesn't know what's happening, because many of them, they are not familiar with this system. Okay, let's sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Let's come back. So here we have the difference between Sayyid al-Khuy, Sayyid Sistani, and many other maraja. Many other maraja, they say, if you are not able to define the a'lam, okay, it's out of your capacity. We discussed this previously. I'm not going to go into detail. Then you can choose any one of them, even if you don't know who's probable in a'lamiyya. So this might come in future. Nowadays, we have the strongest indications are there on Sayyid Sistani. But if not, then probability is there. So anyhow, so we have a probable marja in a'lamiyya. But coming days in future, we might have a scenario where people are not able to define the a'lam even probable in a'lamiyya. Then either they do precaution, and if precaution is difficult, then they do ihtiyat. Other maraja, they say you don't need to do precaution. You can just choose any one of them. Ikhtiyar. So you have the ikhtiyar option to choose any one of them. This is when you are not able to define the a'lam, which might be the case in coming future. May Allah prolong the life of Sayyidi Sistani Damadullah. So his living and his existence is not going to open that door, because strong indications are there with Sayyidi Sistani. And I've discussed this in my lesson of Taqreed. So, so we come back to this. So this is the ruling. Now let's come to the bahth. So Sayyid al-Khuy, why does he say that you can't choose? Other maraja, they say you can choose when you are unable to. Sayyid al-Sistani, Sayyid al-Khuy says no. Sayyid al-Sistani says no. You have to do precaution. If you're not able to do precaution, then choose. Now let's see the argument. This is all ruling we have mentioned previously in our previous session. This is today. So we mentioned two scenarios. One, if the mujtahideen, they have no variances in the rulings. That was a scenario. We argued that scenario, and that was not a complicated situation. Then we have sorry for that. Then we have a scenario where the mujtahideen, they have variances. The mujtahideen, they have variances, which is the case nowadays. Okay, moon sighting issue, this issue, that issue. So what will happen when mujtahideen have variances and I'm not able to define the a'lam? So Sayyid al-Khuy says, Amma surah thaniya, as for the second scenario, I mean, then when we know that they have variances, then it is a popular opinion between the maraja, our Shia maraja, bain al-ashab, may Allah make their souls holy, huwa at-takhyir, that they choose whomsoever. Okay, we are not able to define a'lam, we have inability. In that case, they said they choose. And what are their arguments? Number one, the argument, they have given three arguments, and Sayyid al-Khuy has responded to them and rebutted them. Argument number one, they said the general absolute evidences of doing taqleed to a marja, it's inclusive. The evidences did not say do taqleed to an a'lam. Okay, the evidences are general. فإنها تشمل, it is inclusive to the mujtahid's fatwa. Okay, regardless of this mujtahid, that mujtahid, both are mujtahid, you follow any one of them, you have applied the direction given to us by the evidences. Sayyid al-Khuy says it is flawed. The flaw of this argument is obvious. Why, Sayyidina? We have discussed previously in detail that itlaq al-adillah, the absoluteness, the inclusiveness of adillah, okay, they are absolute. They include any type of mujtahid, as long as there is no variances between them. These evidences do not look at the case, specific case of variances. This evidence looks at the cases where the maraja, they have agreement, or I don't know that they have variances. But when I know that they have variances, they have ikhtilaf, then my responsibility is different. Then the evidences chooses the one who's most knowledgeable. And we have to strive to choose the most knowledgeable. If I can't find, then there is another scenario, precaution and so on. But at this point, he says no. I can't just skip the precaution, skip the ihtiyat, and tell them to choose anyone you want. You see? So the first argument is discussed one session we had whole about this absoluteness of evidences. What are the evidences of taqleed? So there are several evidences, religious evidences, intellectual evidences. So he has argued all these evidences and proven that these evidences are absolute and general in cases where there is no variances among the maraja. So he says that the absoluteness of evidences cannot have the cases of conflict, because let's say if this absolute, say you can follow this marja, that means these evidences are telling us to do contradicting things. Like what? This, like on the Eid day, fast and break your fast. How can I do that? It's impossible. So, and that means this evidences are not inclusive to the cases of impossibility. Okay, so I can't choose wajib. I can't keep both equal together. I can't. No. This is also, haram is also an option and wajib is also option. I have to avoid and I have to do. That is a contradiction. Or this is like a vid, like black and white. Something cannot be haram and wajib at the same time, same moment, same, and every same aspect. Another is contrariety. What's contrariety? Contrariety is when something is wajib and something is not wajib, like mustahab. So something cannot be wajib and not wajib at the same time. Like this phone cannot be mine and not mine at the same time. This is called tanaqud, naqir. This cannot be. This book cannot be mine and not mine at the same time, same moment. No, it has to be either mine, either not mine. And opposite also is not right. It cannot be not mine and not mine. That means mine. So something can be not wajib, not haram, mustahab, mubah. But something cannot be together, not mine and mine. So thing and nothing, as we discussed this in logic, those who have studied logic, mantiq, we did this naqid. A thing and nothing can never be combined together. Either it's a thing or either it's nothing. You can't have thing and nothing together. So you can't have wajib and not wajib together. That's conflict in contrarieties. And you cannot have haram and wajib together. That's conflict in contradiction. So we have contradiction and contrarieties here. If we say, oh, it is okay, you can contradict yourself. You can follow this or this. This is saying haram and this is saying wajib, that's fine. And so our other maraja, Sayyid al-Khuy says, their argument is flawed because it leads to contradiction and contrariety. Okay, Sayyidina, what's the next argument of there? Sayyid al-Khuy says, other thing they said, Sir al-Uqala'iyya. So there are two things, Sir al-Uqala'iyya and Sirat al-Mutasharri'ah. Let me see, where did my thingy go? Okay, here it is. I just wanted to highlight the Sirat al-Mutasharri'ah because I highlighted Sir al-Uqala'iyya. So, okay, perfect. Now it's good. So Sayyid al-Khu'i says, Sir al-Uqala'iyya. They said Sir al-Uqala'iyya, the intellectuals, they are in the cases where they can't define which is more expert, they put an option to choose. Like if you want to go to the doctor, if you don't know which doctor to choose, okay, you choose any one of the doctor if you are unaware. They say, uqala, intellectual, they choose, they make these kind of decisions whenever they're confused. So let me again remind you all, I know you have studied in the house, just a quick reminder, some of you, they forget. Many times when I ask what is the difference between Siratul Uqala or Siratul Mutasharri'ah, they get confused. Siratul Uqala is the practice of the intellectuals, not common sense. Common sense is what the common makes sensible. Like certain odd marriages are nowadays sensible, alcohol sensible, this sensible. This is common sense. This is wrong. This is not, Sharia cannot be based on common sense. Those people who are making laws and trying to interpret their verses of Quran based on common sense, they're mere ignorance. Common sense has never been a criteria of Sharia. That means Saddam Hussein is a common sense says he was a right person. That means a zalim can become, an oppressor can become a nice person in common sense. So this is nonsense, referring to common sense in interpreting the Islamic understanding is nonsense. So what is this? It's a concept of the intellectual society, the practices of the intellectual society. Now, many times commons, they agree on something intellectually, it is not right. Like what? Like in France, in West, basically, there's a freedom of religion. Okay, that's common intellectual concept. Give the people right to worship whom so they want, and discuss with them politely, and that is Islam. So what happened? Common sense, the majority, they decided to ban the scarf and hijab from the schools, to restrict the freedom of religion, which intellectuals gave. The common sense wants to take it away. That is where the problem of common sense is. The majority of the people, they decided this is not good. Finish. Even if it's going against the civilization, against the freedom of to choose the religion, freedom of right. It's no common sense. And then they blame the Muslims that they are putting restrictions. Okay. So regardless of, so there is a difference between common sense and intellectual practice. I'll give you an example. Practices of the intellectual society. A person is innocent until proven to be guilty. Today, this is a common intellectual law. Yesterday it was. Before 100 years it was. Before 2000 years it was the same. Before 2000 years it was the same. The concept, the law. People might not be practicing, but the law is there among the intellectuals. A person is innocent until proven to be guilty. Sayyid al-Khuy uses this a lot in Al-Qawa'id al-Fiqhiyya. This practice of intellectual was practiced in front of our Ma'soom alayhi salam. If it was wrong, our Ma'soom would have prohibited. But since our Ma'soom did not prohibit the practice of intellectual society, the common practices, so it has been approved, acknowledged by the intellectual society. So that is Sira al-Uqala'iyya as an evidence. Siratul Mutasharri'ah. Mutasharri'ah differs. Mutasharri'ah, you don't need acknowledge of Ma'soom. Why? Who are Mutasharri'ah? These are the companions who lived in the time of the Ma'sooms alayhi salam. Okay, so these companions who lived in the times of the Ma'soom alayhi salatu salam, when they do a practice and we don't have any hadith indicating that practice, we can rely on their practice and their norm. Why? One companion might be mistake, two companions might be mistake, but the whole group of companions, they were doing certain practice that indicates that they were given, and we don't have any hadith. That means there was a hadith, there was a direction, there was a guidance, but it did not reach us because lots of our books have been burned, destroyed, our legacies have been destroyed. So that means they must have had some direction. Not, if one may be confused, but majority of the companions of Ma'sumin alayhi salam, they do a practice, like relying on a narration of trusted person. They used to rely on the narration. So that we don't need to say that if it was wrong, Ma'soom would have prohibited. We can use it, but we don't need to use it. Shaykh Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr says that it is based on a direction of the Ma'soom. They would never do something which the Ma'soom has not guided them for. So their practices is an indicative of the direction, tawjih, okay, hadith of Ma'soom embedded in their actions. So we don't need to, if we don't have hadith, that's fine. And we don't need the acknowledgement of the Ma'soom because it is, these groups are surrounded by Ma'soom. So this is the difference between Sirat al-Uqala and Sirat al-Mutasharri'ah. So the supporters of giving option to people to choose any marja, any, mini, mini, mo, presto, they said Itlaqat. Sayyid al-Khuy says no. Itlaqat, they don't look at the cases of conflict and contrarieties and contradictions. Okay. What about this? Sira al-Uqala'iyya. Uqala, when they are not able to define the most professional, they will choose anyone. So here it says, ومن هنا جرت على التخير في أمثال المقام ومن هنا لم يسمع. We have never heard, this is their argument, the supporters of option. We have never heard somebody who avoided practicing or referring to an Ahl al-Khibra, an expert, where there is another expert who disagrees with him. We have never heard. You go to this expert, that expert. He says, more even, as-sir al-mutasharri'a, they said, the lifestyle of the companions also based on that, because they are depending on the fatwa of any of the mujtahid, and they are not hesitating. Okay, no, I can't listen to you, I can't listen to you. No, they are depending on one of them, option to choose. So basically this here, this point, some other scholars, they said, we are looking at the lifestyle of the companion, and lifestyle of the companion, on the contrary, when the companions, they hear difference of opinion, like some of them said, we heard some say that Imam Ali said this. Imam Sadiq says, La wallahi, Imam Ali did not say that. Or Imam, you misunderstood Imam Ali. So that means the companions' lifestyle would be to come and confirm where they have two different opinions from one of the Imams. So they would come to the Imam back again, to the most knowledgeable. Okay, so some of the scholars, they say on the contrary, Sirat al-Mutasharri'a. Sirat al-Mutasharri'a cannot be pictured because the Ma'soom is available. Even if you want to picture, and there was differences between scholars of Ma'soomin, they would come and approach to Ma'soom and verify, Yabna Rasulullah, is this right or wrong? Okay, now, so now we see the response. Okay, so Sirat al-Mutasharri'a, this is Sirat al-Mutasharri'a. They used to choose any mujtahid. So Sayyid al-Khuy says, respond. If Sira is what they mean in Urida bis-Sira, Jarayan al-Sira al-Takhir, by knowing that there are variances, they can choose. This is how intellectuals, they direct. This is odd. This is this invalid claim. Why? Because the intellectual, whenever they have contradictions, contrarieties, they will do precaution. They will leave this, they will leave this, they will try to find some other way, or they will check, they will do further investigation. They will not do. Like he says that, for example, a person who goes to doctor, one doctor says this, one doctor says that. Okay, so they are going to do precaution. One doctor says take pill, one doctor says do the, what they say, physical exercises, physiotherapy. So these people, intellectual, they will take pill and do physiotherapy. They will do both. They will try to do precaution. They will not choose one over another. Okay, so that's the rebuttal of Sayyid al-Khu'i, that even in the intellectual society there is a sense of precaution. Don't say the intellectual society, when there's variances, they don't do precaution. They do precaution indeed. وَإِنْ أُرِيدَ بِالسِّيرَةِ سِيرَةُ الْمُتَشَرِّعَةِ. If this is Sirat al-Mutasharri'a, that means, so he said it is difficult to prove that in the time of Ma'soom, that there are differences and they have an option to choose. No, when there are differences, they would refer to the Ma'soom. So it is difficult to prove the Sirah, but he says hypothetically, ala taqdiri thubutiya, let's say hypothetically, the companions of Ma'soomin would do. He says, walam tathbut, it is not proven. Let's say the companions, the religious community, they are practicing certain norm. But then he said, okay, let's agree that there are practicing. The Maraja, the people are referring to the Maraja, and they have been referring from before as well. But it is not proven that this Sirah nowadays is connected with the Sirah those days. There's no evidence. لم يحرز كونها متصلة بزمان المعصومين. who and then the seerah transmitted from Ma'sumins to Ma'sumins to Ma'sumin until it came to us. He says these things are, in other places, he says these things are contemporary masail. Before they did not have this, before they had the Ma'sum to refer to when they had differences. And after that time, in each village, there would be a marja, they would be happy with it, because it will be difficult to know the fatwa of other marja. Until the social media, we had only access to only one marja who will become popular, and that's it. We did not have this crisis of, one of the crises social media brought that variety, so many maraja, so many websites, so many become popular. So now people, they get confused. Okay, so now this variety, especially after Islamic Republic, when there are different direction of taqleed popped up, okay, different methodology that the marja should be political leader, even he's not a'lam, he needs to be political. So instead of a'lamiyya, the political leadership, that became the criteria of choosing the marja. So that kind of, the whole total different department opened. So therefore, which majority of the Maraja of Qum and Najaf, they disagree with this direction. However, so therefore, we have a new era where confusion is there, where we have this option to choose. So he said this kind of condition was not there. This is more contemporary issue. More contemporary issue. It was not in the time of our companions of Ma'sumin alayhi salam. So he says that it was where did it, yeah, muttasila. It is, we can't prove that our seerah now, where people, they choose to follow whomsoever, and the maraja, they give the option to choose. You want to go to this one, to that one, it's totally up to you. You don't have to refer to a'lam. This was not there in that time of the Ma'sum, so that we can say this is Sirat of Mutasharri'ah supporting it. Sirat al-Mutasharri'ah is limited in the time of Ma'sumin, or connected a little bit closer to that time. We can't extend it to now, because the 12th Imam Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu, though he's living, but he's not practicing his duty as someone who can intervene on a religious issues and tell people the fatwas. Okay, he has left it on the shoulders of the scholars, mujtahideen. So he says, وَلَمْ يَرْدَعِ الْأَئِمَّةِ عَنْ فِعْلِهِمْ ذَلِكَ لِنَسْتَكْشِفْ بِذَلِكَ أَنَّ السِّيرَ مُنْضَاتٌ مِنْ قِبَلِهِمْ. But he said all this is not proven, that the Ma'sums, they did not stop them from following this pattern of choice, choose this or this. بل إن من الجائز, he says there is a probability أن تكون السيرة على تقدير كونها كذلك ناشئة من فتوى المفتين من أصحابنا بالتخيير. He says maybe the seerah popped up recently, where we started having maraja, or maybe in that time also, after the time of Ghaibat al-Sughra, when there are maraja, they started saying you have an option, you have an option. So it's not because of the seerah, it's because of other reasons they might have, other causes they might have, not based on seerah, because seerah is not proven this kind of norm of the mutasharri'ah, of the companions. Okay, so second argument gone also. Second argument of those who say you have an option to choose, not precaution. Sayyid al-Khuy says you have to do precaution. They said no, option. He says on the contrary, Seerah al-Uqala'iyya indicates precaution. Seerah al-Mutasharri'ah is not proven. Da'wa al-Ijma', consensus. So the third thing they use, okay, the opponents of Sayyid al-Khuy and Sayyid al-Sistani, they say Da'wa al-Ijma'. There is a consensus that our ulama, all of them unanimously, no one said that whenever you cannot find an a'lam, you do ihtiyat. Okay, you can choose anyone. It says ijma'. So now coming back to ijma'. Ijma', there are two types. Ijma' manqul, transmitted ijma', ijma' muhassal, acquired ijma'. Acquired ijma' and transmitted, what's the difference? I say, I heard my teacher, there's an ijma'. Who heard that his teacher said, this is not acceptable ijma', because this is narrated by one trusted person only. Ijma' needs to be acquired ijma'. If I say, I checked and I give you evidence. I checked Sayyid al-Khuy, this Sayyid al-Khuy's word, this Sayyid al-Sistan, let's say ijma of the previous ones. Ijma needs to be from the closer to the time of Shaykh al-Tusi and those ulamas. Those are strong ijma. Shaykh al-Tusi said a mas'ala. He may be, because we don't have a hadith. We don't have evidence. That is why we have to take ijma. So ijma means what? Ijma means there is hadith. How? Shaykh al-Tusi, when he gives a fatwa, he must have referred to a hadith. So there is a probability he might be also mushtabah, he might be also confused or made an error. He's a human being. Okay, if Shaykh al-Mufid gives same fatwa, so existence of evidence, because they were known to be very pious, God-fearing, God-loving. They would not give fatwas from their pockets like nowadays people are doing it. Okay, they'll be very careful, very careful. And they would emphasize whoever gave fatwas without knowledge should choose their place in hellfire. And they were known to be God-loving and God-fearing. So that means that when they give fatwa, they must have depended on hadith. That hadith did not reach to us. Number one. Number two, if, say, Shaykh Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr says, if more mujtahideen, they are coming and they are giving same fatwa, until all of the mujtahideen in the same time, they give a fatwa unanimously, and I make record of it, so that is acquired ijma. That is hujjah if it indicates the infallible alayhi salam is among them. How can I prove that infallible is among them? I can prove infallible among them by qarinat al-hikmah, clue of wisdom. That means our imam is living. He is not interfering in the fatwas. But if he sees there's a danger, serious problem, okay, going to happen, all of the ulamas, they are saying something, then he has to intervene. How does he intervene? Someone pops up, like Ibn Salar and like that. So most of our ijma'at, according to the Sayyid al-Khuy, are not proven properly, okay? Not proven properly. So there's always a scratch. Very few ijma'at are there. So he said, if they are saying that ijma', they heard the ijma', and this ijma' manqul, أنه إجماع منقول بالخبر الواحد ولا يمكننا الاعتماد عليه. And there is no ijma' muhassal on this issue. على أن الاتفاق غير مسلم. There's no obviousness that our ulamas, they agree on this ruling. I'm disagreeing. Say the Sistani will pop up and say, I'm disagreeing. So where is the ijma'? Where is the unanimity, agreement, unanimous consensus? So غير مسلم. It's not obvious that there is an agreement on this ruling. Why? Because لأنها من المسائل المستحدثة. Because it's from the contemporary. And the scholars previously never addressed this issue. It is now because we have the ta'addudiyya and centralization in one place, Najaf and Qom. Otherwise, those days, a scholar comes to a city, in that every city will have their own mujtahid. Now all the mujtahid are packed in Qom and Najaf. So that is the difference. So this has been more contemporary. People, before they had one mujtahid, Maulana, they knew him, he's trustworthy, he's the most knowledgeable amongst us, he's our marja. But then with this globalization, okay, and the centralization, all the maraja. So we have Khwansari from Khwansari is here. Tabrizi from Tabrizi is here. Khurasani from Khurasani is here. Every type of, from different Najafi, Baghdadi, or Karbala'i, everybody is in Najaf and in Qom. So Najaf and Qom has become like a central place for Maraja to be there. So now that creates a confusion. Who is alam among them? Before we had only one top scholar in our city, and we did not have any ways to know other scholars' knowledge in other city. So he was known. Now everybody's there, and everybody has witnesses and testimonies and this and that. So we get confused now. So he says this is a contemporary ruling. وَلَمْ يَتَعَرَّضْ لَهَا الْفُقَهَاء. Previous ulamas, they never addressed this issue in their words. فَكَيْفَ يُمْكِنْ دَعْوَى الْإِجْمَاعِ? How can we claim the ijma' on this, that the ijma' says you have an option to choose anyone? بل لو فرضنا العلم باتفاقهم أيضا لم يمكننا الاعتماد عليه. Let's say they are all in agreement. We can't depend on them. إذ لا يحتمل أن يكون اتفاقهم هذا إجماعا تعبديا. It does not have that probability that this consensus is a religiously binding, religiously binding or binding consensus. No, it's not an ijma' ta'abbudi. It does not indicate that Ma'soom alayhi salam is among the mujmi'een, because there is ikhtilaf. If the ijma' is proven, then it may be due to other reasons which he mentioned previously. Conclusion on this mas'ala. فالمتحصل إلى هنا أن التخيير بين المجتهدين المجتهدين to مجتهد المتساويين. He says in conclusion, there is no evidence. All the evidence are shattered, battered by Sayyid al-Khawi. There is no evidence to say that you can choose any, mini, mini, mo. If you can't find a marja, if you can't find an a'lam, choose this, you have a choice. No. He says no, we can't. So there is no dalil, there is no evidence. بل الحجية, the authority, بل الحجية التخيرية, the optional authority. To choose, this is authority, this is authority, this is proof, this is proof. أمر غير معقول. It is impossible to picture that حجية التخيرية في مقام الثبوت. What is مقام الثبوت? Maqam al-thubut is what we are going to discuss in our next session after 5 minutes break. So this argument has been completed. If you have not understood, I'll upload this, go back and go to the areas and repeat that areas, recorded areas. So what is maqam al-thubut and maqam al-ithbat? What is hujjiyya takhiriyya? So our talk is going to be to understand maqam al-thubut wal-ithbat, hujjiyya takhiriyya, and based on that also come to further rebuttal of this argument. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. So at this moment, if you have any question, you can feel free to ask the